I hope you all are having a fantastic morning and afternoon. This is Atmospheric Alex here with your tropical weather forecast for today on a future area of invest that we might be watching over the next week or so. Also, you may notice that my thumbnail's a little bit different. I decided to move away from the pixelated blocky text as I was afraid that the large text would promote more hype and more fear-mongering, so I am taking a bit of a step back here to prevent any fear or panic that might be caused. So right now we're going to start off by taking a look at the National Hurricane Center's tropical weather outlook here. And this will be over the next 7 days. We could see two well-defined areas here of potential invest. So our first one is the one we're watching closely. It's near the Lesser Antilles and the Caribbean Sea, and we could see this thing develop into the Central Caribbean and possibly make its way up into the Gulf, or it could trek its way over the Greater Antilles and do something like that. So some uncertainty will still remain for that system. We don't even know if it'll develop yet. We thought we did, and the models just keep pulling that rug out from under us. So we really got to watch this closely. So right here, right now, we're going to take a look at the Icon model. This is the only model that, in my opinion, has resolved this system correctly, or somewhat correctly. There's been other models as well that have not been showing this thing forming at all, but you can see by Tuesday morning, we do potentially have a tropical depression moving its way into the leeward, even some of the windward islands here. So we do need to watch out very closely with that. And we'll continue to see the system trek here into Wednesday as it becomes a much more organized tropical storm potentially. And we could see, I haven't fully looked at this model yet, so it's a little bit interesting to see what it shows. We could be seeing more potentially quick organization. I don't want to say rapid yet, but this looks to be on Thursday where we begin to see possibly a higher end tropical storm. And honestly, I'm going to stop it right here. I don't feel comfortable going any further with just how fast this is strengthening on this particular model. I don't want to be spreading any fear mongering at all. But it's important to note this tries to stay away from the Greater Antilles, so still, if you are in these areas, you need to watch closely, but especially the Lesser Antilles need to be on high alert, need to be checking the National Hurricane Center very often, a couple of times a day at least. Okay, up next we're going to be moving on to our ocean heat content, and I don't think I really have to say anything at this point. In fact, I just want to wheel away and not even look at it, but this is kind of what I'm doing here. I have to look at this. This is very important. And this would be, like I've said in the past, side one of your tropical weather triangle. We will mention that again. Very high ocean heat content values that are off the charts in the Caribbean, where this future system will likely be tracking through. So if it does get organized, before it enters that area, then it's going to be quite significant. So we'll just need to monitor. It does have an extraordinarily high ceiling, but it also has a floor of it not forming, so it can either fall into the void, become nothing, or climb basically to the top of Mount Everest and be an absolute catastrophe to several areas. So we just need to watch this closely. In the Gulf, still really significant. That eddy there, still almost historic values. And ocean heat content is essentially a measure of how far down these warm sea surface temperatures go and how much energy there is in the ocean. Now it's time to take a look at side two of your tropical weather triangle, and that would be your wind shear. We're going to take a look at our EPS ensemble, as I do believe that is our more realistic ensemble scenario. You could see very minimal wind shear across the Caribbean. Yeah, you do have a little bit across the Lesser Antilles here, so that could prevent development briefly. But depending on our moisture and everything like that, we should be seeing a lot more strengthening, and you do have more wind shear moving in as a tropical upper tropospheric trough begins to move in here, and that'll set the stage for more vigorous wind shear around it. And some of it leaks into the Caribbean, 20, 25 knots. That's still not a lot of wind shear, so I think the system won't have too much of a difficult time organizing in those conditions. And then we can just look at the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know why we should, because this is, you don't have much wind shear here. So you better hope that this thing just crashes and burns and dies out before it reaches these areas here. And next on the chopping block is side 3 of our tropical weather triangle. This is our moisture side. And so we could see our wave envelope here passing over the Lesser Antilles. You got some increased moisture. But take a look at this plume of dry air coming in fast behind it. And this thing, I mean, it's basically engulfing the Caribbean here. So this thing needs to get a move on. It needs to speed up a little so it doesn't get caught by that dry air ahead. You know, that could really choke it out, really prevent it from forming. And some models do show that happening. So that's why we said, will this thing form? I don't know. Does anybody know? No, nobody's going to know. This is very uncertain. And we've been dealing with these uncertain model data probably for a month now. Your seismometer goes like this, you know. Can't use that, that's unreliable. But it's the only thing we have. And as this continues to move through your wave envelope here, you do encounter more moisture as you head into the Gulf, so really need to watch out for organization here especially. Well, Alex, you just showed us some incredible conditions for this thing to form in. So why are some models not showing it developing? Well, I'm glad you asked, because this is actually going to be a little more detailed here. I want you to note 2 large areas of convection. I know this is in motion, so it's hard to see, but once this lines up, 2 areas of convection. I would also like to note the spin that you see in them. There's a little bit of spin, you know, underneath all those clouds there. You got 2 kind of open waves here that are developing. So what this essentially means is you have 2 large areas of vorticity right now. Okay, so can you already see a bit of a problem here? You have 2 areas of vorticity with similar spin right next to each other. Well, in the tropics, you can't have that. They're either going to 1, merge, 2, one's going to become dominant over the other, or 3, cancel each other out. Alright, now the easiest and the simplest way I could kind of describe this is through severe weather. Now I know it's kind of going off the rail a little bit. We've been talking about tropical weather. So how could severe weather help us here? Well, we should be seeing a large but disorganized pair of supercells appear on the screen in 3, 2, 1... Bam! Right there. So, why do I bring this example up? Well, you can see I drew a supercell here with kind of a bit of disorganization. You have a rotation here and a rotation here. Why am I mentioning this? Well, let's think about these storms for a second, if they're trying to rotate. And we actually saw this the other day with some of our severe weather up in North Dakota and South Dakota. There's a supercell that at first looked so healthy it produced a tornado, then another supercell merged with it, and it kept fighting for dominance the entire time. It was a back and forth battle between these 2 hooks right here, until one of them finally won, but it took so long for it to occur. What am I saying? We have an area of rotation here, and we have an area of rotation here. These are fighting for dominance. It's probably going to take a long amount of time for them to either, you know, merge together, like what that storm did the other day, or they could even cancel each other out, you know. That has also happened sometimes. It waits too long, the environment's no longer favorable, and so it just dies out really fast. So we'll just have to wait and see what this does. I thought it was a nice little analogy there that you all might understand quite well. That being said, we're going to move on to our EPS cyclone locations map. You can see here we're looking at all of our low pressure possibilities. These aren't all going to develop in a system. This is just the possibilities from this model. You can see it absolutely rattling the leeward and windward islands here in the Lesser Antilles as potentially a tropical storm. Some of these even want to be a hurricane. That's not going to happen. Remember what I just said a minute ago. Fighting for dominance, it's going to take a while. This isn't going to form overnight. You can see a very healthy signal there moving on through. As we keep going through, wow, look at this. Hurricane, maybe even a major hurricane. Look at rapid intensification right afterwards. And oh my gosh, just look at it continuing. Hype, hype, hype. Look at it going into Florida. Whoa, Gulf of Mexico. Major hurricane. Wait. What happened? I don't understand. Wait, I thought the models showed a strong signal, right? We're not going back to this again. There's no way. Well, let me present to you the GEFS model. Where is your signal? It's not there. It's not there. There's so much disagreement still. So if you're about to call out a Gulf landfall, Florida landfall, what are you doing? We don't know what's going to happen yet. And this GEFS model run, look at this. Barely scrapes the Leeward Islands, barely scrapes Great Antilles, goes out to sea. Guys, we gotta wait on this. We can't be calling things out already, alright? Let's tone down the hype, alright? Turn the knob down a little bit before we get too excited over this and say that this thing is ready to go. Because it's not. We don't know what's going to happen yet. And with that, I leave you on a bit of a lower note. Not all hyper that it's going to form, you know. With that being said, thank you all so much for tuning into today's video. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to smash that like button and possibly even subscribe to help my little corner of the weather community, and share this with friends and family across the board if you wish. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's video, and I hope you all have a fantastic afternoon.